Just to let you know, this game is from my new course, 30 Games in 30 Days using Godot. If you enjoyed the video, you should check out the full course where you learn how to create the rest of the games. If you join the Academy, you will get full access to not only this course, but every course in my game development curriculum. A link will be attached to the description below. In this project, we will be creating a fruit duel game. We will be playing as a player who can slice any of the incoming fruit. Once a fruit is sliced, we will cut it in half and gain a point. If we slice a cherry bomb, however, the screen will flash and we then lose some points. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. In this section, we're going to go ahead and create the main nodes for our game. We're going to go ahead and create all the nodes in the main scene. Then we're going to ensure to add a line 2D to represent the slash. We're also going to add multiple cannon points for the fruit and also a boom scene that appears when we hit a cherry. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. Alright, let's go ahead and get started creating some of the main nodes. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead on starting UI. We're going to right click, add child node, and we're going to go ahead and simply add a node 2D. Let's move this on up here. And what I like to do also is name the main node up here the name of the game. So let's call this fruit duel game. Perfect. Then that node we just added, let's go ahead and change this to just main. This will house most of our nodes. All right. Awesome. So let's go ahead and add what we need. So one of the first nodes we're going to need is going to be an area 2D. This is going to be the thing that follows around our mouse as the slash. So we're going to have this start right in the top left corner. We don't need to move it around. We're going to go ahead and give it a name. Let's call it area 2D and we'll just call this slash. And then what we're going to do, we're going to right click, add child node, and we're going to go ahead and add a collision shape. All right. Awesome. And this is going to be pretty small. We don't need it to be very big. So let's give it a new circle shape. And we're going to make it relatively the size that it comes out at. We can make it a little smaller if we want to. It's kind of up to you. But I think that'll be pretty good. Awesome. Because we just want it to kind of be like the point of the mouse. So I think that works pretty good. Awesome. All right. We're also going to give it a group name as well. Let's go ahead, select the main node of it, area 2D. I'm going to close it up. Let's go to node, group. Let's go ahead and add a new one. And this one's just simply going to be all lowercase slash. All right, perfect. Because eventually with some of the fruit, we're going to have to be looking for whether or not it is getting slashed with this little thing here. Okay, awesome. So the next thing we can do is we can go ahead, right click, add child node. We can go ahead and simply add a line 2D. And this is also going to follow around the mouse once we get the script created. We can leave everything else the same for it though. No worries there. Next thing we can do, let's go ahead, let's right click, add child node. We can add a node to house all the cannons. So let's go ahead and add another node 2D. These cannons are going to be responsible for shooting the fruit out. I'm going to have a couple moving out from the bottom and then two, one from the right and one from the left. Okay, awesome. So let's rename this. I'm going to call it cannons with an S. Awesome. And we don't have to move it around. Let's add some nodes inside of it though to represent the points. So we can just name this just cannon by itself, no S. So this will be cannon, and we'll just call this cannon 1. Okay, awesome. All right. And like I said, we're going to add some at the bottom. So let's use this one here. Let's move it down over here. We might move these around a little later, but for now I think we'll keep it. So we'll have cannon 1 there, Control D, cannon 2 somewhere about here, cannon 3, let's do it like right here. And then we're going to have another one, cannon 4, and then another one, cannon 5. And again, you can move these around however you'd like as long as they're on the bottom here. It should be fine, okay? I might go ahead and just select all of them real quick. And I just want to make sure they're pretty centered here, maybe a little lower. Let's see how that looks. I think that should be good. Awesome. All right, now we need the 2 on the side. So let's go ahead, Control D, cannon 6, like I mentioned before, I'm going to put it right over here. Awesome. And then the last one, cannon 7, I'm just going to put it right across, right over here. And again, we might move these around later, but for now, this should be okay. So these are going to be all the points that the fruit are going to come out once we create the canon script. Okay, awesome. Let's close that up. Perfect. All right. So now we have our line 2D, our canons, our area 2D. Now we're going to need some other things here. Let's right click, add child node. We're going to need a label. This label is going to represent how much time we have left in the game. So let's go ahead. Let's just call this label time. Okay, awesome. For label time, I want it in that top left corner. So let's go ahead and we're going to simply move it somewhere like this. Awesome. And then we're going to have the time. Let's click it, go to inspector, have it just say time, colon, and then we'll start it at 20 seconds like that. Okay, let's go ahead and I'm going to simply center it just like that. I might move it over just a bit so it kind of matches up with the quit button. I think it looks pretty good though. Awesome. Again, you can always customize this however you like. I'm going to give it a label setting so it kind of matches the other font. Pretty simple though. Let's just go ahead and make that 30. Yep. And then let's go ahead, make this 13. Change the color to black. And we should be good. And again, you can always customize this however you'd like. That's completely up to you, but I think that looks pretty good. Awesome. All right, so we have our label. Perfect. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to need an actual timer. So let's go ahead and add a timer here. Now this timer, this one's going to be for the game length. So let's go ahead and do game length. Perfect. Awesome. And I don't think we'll set anything here. We might give it a one-shot value though, so it doesn't keep repeating. And then it's going to automatically be set to 20, but we'll set it to 20 here just so it matches up. Okay, awesome. Perfect. Eventually we will attach a signal to it, but for now we can leave it as is. Awesome. All right. So now we just need, of course, the animation for playing the boom animation once we hit a cherry. So we're going to go ahead, right click, add child node. For this, we're going to add a color rect. And we're going to go ahead, let's put this above or even below the label because I still want to see the time label. But we want this to cover the entire screen. Now it's not always going to be active. In idle, it's not going to be active at all. It's actually going to be completely invisible, so we're not going to see it. But once that happens, we will go ahead and see that appear with some text in the middle. But let's go ahead and just call this flash. Awesome. And then let's take our label time just so we can keep the same font. I'm going to duplicate that, drag and drop it into here. Perfect. And I'm just going to go ahead and call this label boom, which is the word it's going to say. And just so we can see it a little better, let's close the main screen there. And I'm simply going to go ahead, take label boom, and I'm going to just stretch it out all the way here so we can just center it up real easy. So let's center it there. Perfect. And I'm just going to say boom here with exclamation point. Awesome. All right. And if you wanted to make it a little bigger, which I might do, all you got to do, right click, make unique, simply select it, and then simply increase it. So I'm going to do 60 for this. And then of course, make the outline a little more thick. Let's do 28 for that. And there we go. Awesome. All right. Perfect. And again, now we just need an animation player to make this go into effect. So I'm going to turn this off for now. Let's go ahead, right click on main, add child node, and we're going to add an animation player. And it's going to be real simple. All we want to do is add a nice animation. We'll just call that one idle, which is going to be the one that's going to play by default. And again, the only thing we want to happen with idle animation is simply we want to make the flash invisible, which it already is. But to make it in the animation, you have to go to visibility. And there you go. Keep it off and hit the key here. Perfect. So that'll turn it off. But of course, we want the actual boom animation. So to do that, let's do new. Let's call this boom. And all we're going to do is simply make this visible just like that. Perfect. Key it. So it's going to stay like that. And then we are slowly going to make it invisible over time. Now it really depends how long you want to make it. I made mine originally like 2 seconds, so we can make it 2 seconds as well. So let's go ahead and let's go to 2 seconds. So we got to increase the default, go all the way to 2. And even before we do though, we want to save the modulate, which is the full visible value. And then once we go all the way down, we're going to want to make this go like this. Hit play. Perfect. And then also we want to make it invisible, so we're going to click that and do that as well. So when we hit play, it's going to look like this and fade simply away. Okay, awesome. So we go back to idle, hit play, it's not going to be visible, great. And if we go to boom, hit play, it's going to appear and then slowly fade out. Okay, awesome. Let's go back to idle though and let it rest there. Perfect. All right, awesome. Let's save that real quick. Let's turn back on the original screen, which is right here. Perfect. And so far, looking good. Save what you got. All right, in this section, we're going to go ahead and create the fruit node. We're going to start off creating the main node for the fruit. Then we're going to go ahead and add all the different slices of fruit. There should be 4 overall. Each one of those slices is going to need its own area 2D. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and get started creating the fruit slices. So we're going to go ahead and create a new node for this. We're going to go inside of Fruit Game Duel, add child node. We're going to create a character body 2D for this. And the starting one is going to be the apple. So let's go ahead and just call this apple. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to create this as its own scene. So let's right click, say branch as scene. And we're going to make sure to put this inside of our game components Fruit Duel game folder. Okay, awesome. Make sure it's in there. You can open it up, double check it. Should be there, perfect. Then you can open it up. Awesome. Let's go back to Fruit Duel though. Let's remove this one here. We don't need this one. Now we can use this one here. Awesome. So once we create one, then we can simply just change out all the sprites. So we're really only going to need this one here. Okay, awesome. So as mentioned, we're going to have to give this a main sprite and then also a couple different ones per different slice. So let's go ahead, add child node, and we're going to go ahead and add a node 2D. And we're going to call this whole sprite. All right, so this one is not going to be sliced yet. It's just going to be plain old whole. Then we're going to go ahead, add a sprite 2D. Then let's locate the sprite we want to use, which is in our art folder. Fruit Duel, and whichever fruit you put in here. If you put the whole thing in like me, then you have to open that up and locate whichever one you want to use. This is going to be the apple, so I'm going to use the red or the green apple. Perfect. Now the sizing, it really depends. The whole screen is going to be this big, so I might increase it just a bit. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to transform, and I'm simply going to make this, let's see what 3 looks like. That looks pretty good to me. If you wanted to make it 4, that's up to you, but I think this should look pretty good. Let's see what 4 looks like though. And yeah, that looks a little too big for me, so let's do 3. Awesome. All right, so then what we want to do is to make it less blurry. To do that, simply go to the texture and go to filter, change inherent to nearest, and there we go. Awesome, and there's our apple, okay? Perfect. So that's going to be our whole one. Now we just need all the different halves. Now we're going to do the halves a little bit differently. But let's go ahead, add child node, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to add another node 2D. And we're going to start off with the slice right. Okay, awesome. So let's do slice right. Okay, perfect. And how we're going to do these is we are going to put these basically in 2 different halves. So we're going to have a half for each one. And because we're doing that, we're going to need to give it its own character body. And the reason we're doing that is because when we want these to basically fly apart, they need to have their own character body to have the velocity. So let's go ahead and add right click, child node, character body, and we're going to give it a slice name. So we're going to have our half 1, and then we're also going to have our half 2. So I'm just simply going to duplicate it. Okay, awesome. Then for each half, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a color rec to it. And honestly, let's just go ahead and just make this one here and remove this one because we can simply just duplicate the whole thing. So we'll add child node, and we're going to add a color rec to this. The reason we need this is because we can go ahead and basically crop it, and that's what we want, okay? So this one here, as mentioned, we're going to have a top part and a bottom part. So this half 1 is going to be the top part, okay? So the top part is going to be everything above. So what I'm going to do is simply make this like this. Now we want it to be a lot bigger, and the reason is because in the future we're going to have different shapes of fruit that might be longer than the apple. Like the banana is a little bit longer, and so forth, the other types of fruit. So you want to make this thing pretty big so we don't have to change it on each one individually. Okay, so make it relatively big like this. Okay, awesome. All right, and then what we're going to do is actually add the sprite to it. Okay, so we'll just call this half one as well. Perfect. Then we're going to right click, add child node, and we're simply going to add a sprite 2D. Okay, awesome. Then we need the apple again. Let's drag and drop the apple into there. Perfect. We need to make sure it centers with the original apple, and also that the sizing is the same, which we set it to 3 if I remember. Perfect. The texture, nearest, awesome. And then we just have to set it correctly, just like that. Okay. Now how are we going to get it to actually half it? So there's a way we can do that pretty easily. Is simply go to our half here, and then we're going to go to the visibility, and we are going to crop or clip only. There we go, and there we go. And if we go ahead and now make the whole sprite invisible, you're going to see that we have now this here, which is the half of it. Okay, perfect. So now we just need to do this for the other side. Okay, so we have this one here. So what we're going to do is we're going to Control D. So we have half 2. Change the name of this one to half 2. And then what we'll do is we can simply move this down. So I'm going to move this down to here. And then the sprite, we're just simply going to move this up until we get to the center point, until it's about even. Okay. So now if we go ahead and make this one visible, it should match up because it's right behind this. Because if I take this away, you'll see it's still there. So that's how we can kind of make sure we're in the correct positioning. All right. Awesome. So this is the slice right. Okay. So we're slicing it right like that, or either way basically. So let's go ahead, we'll keep that there. Let's go ahead now and turn off this one and this one. So now we can go ahead and just duplicate this. So now we have the slice right, now we need the slice down. So it's going to slit it each part right here and here. Okay, so let's go ahead, take that, duplicate it. Let's call this slice down now. Perfect. And let's go ahead and make this visible. And if you guessed it, we are just simply going to rotate these now. Okay, now that's pretty easy. What we're going to do is simply just rotate the half here. So let's go ahead and we're going to go to Layout, and we're going to go to Transform, and we're simply going to set the rotation to 90 degrees like this. Perfect. We'll set the rotation of the apple back as well, but I'm just going to move this over here and then move it up just a bit so it's about even in the middle. Perfect. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the apple now, which is going to also be 90. It might be negative 90 though because of the other way, which is perfectly fine. There we go. Let's see. Okay, so we have this half here. So we can go ahead and move this all the way to the right. Or, well, we want the left one, so it's going to go ahead and do this like that. Perfect. Awesome. So that's going to be our half over there. So now we just need to do our next one. And honestly, so I don't have to rotate the whole thing, I'm going to delete our second half that we have. Simply just copy and paste it. And then I'm going to simply take that there and just move it on over. Just kind of link it up. Perfect. And then I'm going to take our half here, and I'm simply just going to move it on over till we get there. Awesome. And then just to double check everything is aligned, let's go ahead and make the whole sprite visible in the back. And then we can make this one turn off, and it's still there. Perfect. Awesome. So that's going to be our slice down or up, depending on where the mouse is. Okay, perfect. All right, so now we need the horizontal ones, so the sideways ones, which are pretty similar. So let's go ahead, and we're going to simply take this, duplicate it, and we're going to go ahead. This one here we're going to rename. We're just going to call this sliced right slashed, because again, we're going to have two different sides we can do this. So we're going to say slice. We could do sliced right slashed. Okay, perfect, which is that horizontal. Awesome. And let me double check which one I had for that, because I think the sliced right one is simply going to be the horizontal one that we have to begin with, which is going to be one here and then one here. Okay, so let's go ahead now. And let's rotate these correctly. So we have our half one. We need to rotate this horizontally. So let's go ahead. Let's go to transform. Let's go here. And I think it should be 45. Looks like it'll be negative 45. So let's do negative 45. Perfect. We do have to move it down though, because as you can tell, it's a little too high up. So let's go ahead and put this somewhere like here, and then we'll do it there. Perfect. Awesome. Then we got to rotate our apple. Let's go ahead, rotate the apple. Let's see, let's do it 45. It is going to be this one, but we have to now adjust it to the middle. Perfect. And then like we did before, let's just remove that second half. We don't need it. Let's turn off the whole sprite. And the other one as well. So we have this here now. Perfect. Now we can go ahead, Control D. Let's go ahead and take this and just move it on down until it matches up. Just like that. Perfect. Then we're going to take the sprite and simply just move it until it connects. Awesome. And then we shouldn't see any lines. Everything should be perfect, and I think that looks pretty great. All right, so that's the sliced right slashed. All right, because as you can tell, it's going like this. Then we're going to need to do the one that goes like this, okay? So let's turn that back on there. Perfect. All right, let's duplicate this, Control D. So let's go ahead. Let's just call this sliced left. Perfect. Get rid of the 2. All right. I'm going to make this one invisible here. Let's go ahead and remove this one here for now. We don't need it. All right. So now we need to do the angle a little differently here. Let's go to Transform Layout. Let's go ahead and just do 45 now, which is perfect. And then we're going to take this relatively in the middle. Let's take our sprite, make this negative 45 now. And then what we're going to do is simply move it on over here, match it up, perfect. Then we can go ahead, duplicate this. And what we're going to do is simply move the whole thing up just a bit till it's about centered. Make sure it is centered both ways as well. Perfect. Take the sprite, simply match it up. Now see how there's that little line? That means we made this not close enough, so make sure you make it close enough. It's going to give you that, and you don't want that. And that should be okay. Perfect. Awesome. And there we go. So now we have all of our slices created. Perfect. So now we just need the area 2Ds, and these are pretty easy. We're just going to have basically a marker for each one. So let's go ahead, create those real quick. Add child node, area 2D. All right. So the first one, we're going to do area 2D side. So if you swipe it like that or slice it this way, it'll go ahead and initiate this. So let's go ahead. Let's just call this side. Perfect. And then let's go ahead, give it a collision shape. Perfect. Give it a rectangle one. All right, and this one's going to be pretty thin. We're just going to go ahead and have this real thin, but directly in the middle. Let's do this here, and then a little bit there. Perfect. And we do want them slightly far, so we're going to go like this and like this. I think that'll be pretty good. Perfect. Awesome. So that's the side one. Okay, now we're going to need the middle one. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just duplicate this, Control D, change the name to area 2D middle, and then take that collision shape, and we're simply going to rotate it. Okay, let's go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees. Perfect. Awesome. All right. We got the middle now. Now we need the slashing side. So we have the right slash and the left slash. So right slash is this way, left slash is this way. So let's go ahead, Control D. Let's call this right S or right slash. Right S. Perfect. And then take that collision shape. Let's go ahead and let's make this 45. We might need to do negative 45, which we do. So let's do negative 45. Perfect. All right, let's do the last one now, which is the left slash. And if I got these mixed up, then we'll fix them later, no worries. There's a lot of different ones we're doing here. Left S for left slash. And this one is just going to be regular 45, not negative 45. So 45, perfect, awesome. So now if the player slashes in any or direction with the script, it'll go ahead and initiate any of these other ones we created. Okay, awesome. All right, the last node we need in here is just a timer, and that's going to be a timer that kind of takes it away. We don't want these just floating around forever, or that'll use up too much compute power. So let's go ahead, right click, add child node. Let's go ahead and we're going to add that timer. So let's do timer, perfect. And eventually we'll add a signal to the timer, but we will do a one shot and we will make the current lifetime 3 seconds. Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right, and I think that should be everything. I don't think we're going to need anything else in here. I think we're looking good. Eventually we will go ahead, add the scripts to it, but then we will add different ones inheriting either the banana, cherry, grape, and all the others. Let's save what we got, and looking good. All right, in this section, we're going to create the fruit scripts. We're going to start off creating a main fruit controller. Then we're going to go ahead and ensure that when the fruit is hit, it is going to split correctly depending on where it was hit. Then we're also going to go ahead and add a simple script for the fruit pieces movement. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and get started with some of these scripts. Let's go ahead and do the half one first because that is a very small script to start off on. So let's go ahead and open up one of our halves. Let's go ahead and add one here. I'm going to get rid of the underscore and the 1 and just keep half.gd. Make sure you're saving it in the correct location, such as the fruit dual game under game components. Let's go ahead and create that. Perfect. Now this is going to be a real simple script. We're just basically going to be adding the gravity once it's hit. So the starting gravity is always going to be 0. So let's go ahead and just do gravity equals 0.0. Okay. But once it does have the gravity, we'll do function underscore physics process. And then we're going to simply say if not is underscore on ground, or on floor actually. There we go. It's not on the floor. Then we're simply going to set the velocity dot y plus equals the gravity that we have times delta. All right, awesome. And then outside of the if statement, still inside the physics process function, we're going to set move and slide. Perfect, and that's all we need. Simple and easy. So once this is sliced though, it's going to be given some gravity, so then it will start to move correctly. All right, but we need to add this to each half. So let's go back to 2D view, and we can simply find the script by going over here to game components, fruit dual game, opening that up, and you can see then you currently have the apple and then also the half. So then we just have to add this to each one of these. So let's open up each one of our halves and simply drag and drop it onto each one. Perfect. And also note that each one of these sliced halves should be completely invisible with the main node as seen here. The only thing that should be visible, of course, is the whole sprite, and of course all the area 2Ds, timer, and the main apple. But these ones here, all the sliced ones, should not have anything on them, okay? Make sure you add this half.gd to each one of our character bodies for the halves. Okay, perfect. So we have them attached to this one, we have them attached to that one, and that one. Perfect, awesome. Looking good. Go ahead and save that. All right, let's move on to the next script. This one's going to be the main node script. All right, so this one's going to be in charge of determining whether or not it's hit, and of course, which sliced one to make active. Okay, so let's go ahead and select the main node of the apple, add script. Now we're going to change the name because other fruits are going to use this, so I'm going to call this fruit.gd. Make sure you're saving it in the same spot we had the other script, fruit dual game, under game components. Perfect. All right, so we're going to be adding a couple things in here. Let me make the screen a little bigger. All right, so we're going to add a couple variables at the top. Super simple. Let's start off with a variable for direction underscore hit, and that is going to be a type of capital S string. Okay, awesome. Then we're also going to have a variable called gravity, equal that to 300.0. Below that, we're going to go ahead, have a bool, we're going to call it hit, and we're always going to start it off equaling to false. Okay, perfect. Then we're going to have another variable. This one's going to be called rotation underscore speed. And this is going to be preset to 120.0. Okay, awesome. All right, so those are our current variables we're going to have. Below that, we're going to have a couple functions. We're going to have function for physics process. So let's go ahead and add that there. Inside of it, similar to what we just did in the other script, we're going to say if not is underscore on floor. And then inside of it, all we're going to do is set our velocity dot y plus equals our gravity times delta. All right, perfect. And then just like we did, we're also going to have that preset function move and slide to give it the actual movement. Okay, perfect. Below that, we're going to have another simple function, just our simple process function. Inside of there, we're simply going to set our rotation degrees plus equals our rotation speed times delta. Awesome, and that's going to be all of our starting functions. So save what you got so far, and looking good. All right, next up, we're going to start connecting our area 2Ds. So these are going to determine which side we want to basically shoot out a slice, okay? So let's attach all these real quick. So let's select our area 2D, and then starting from the inspector, select your node up here, go to the signals button, and then all you got to do is select the area entered, which is the top one. Make sure it's connecting to the main script on the top, and there we go. It should pop up. Perfect. Awesome. All right. So we have our area 2D side first. Let's add the middle one as well. Let's go ahead, connect it. Let's do the right slash one as well. Connect that. And then the left slash and connect that. Okay, awesome. Since we're here, we could also go ahead and just simply connect the timer. Remember, the current settings was wait time at 3 seconds and 1 shot on. Okay, so go ahead and connect that. Awesome. Perfect, and there's the timer. And because we're also here, all we have to really add in the timer is just queue_free, which is going to get rid of the fruit overall, which is using that queue_free function. And that's all you're going to need for that bottom function there. So you can add that just to be done with it. But as for these ones up here, there's going to be a little more stuff in them, okay? So let's start off with the first one, which is going to be the side one, okay? So let's get rid of the pass. All right, so the first thing we're going to be looking for is an if our area dot is underscore in underscore group. And that group that we're looking for, if you remember from the main scene, is going to be the slash. So within double quotes, put the slash there. Now we're also going to want to make sure that we haven't already been hit. So we're going to make sure that that hit equals false. Okay, perfect. All right, but if all these are the case, then what we want to do is simply set our hit and equal that to true. Okay, perfect. The next thing we'll do is make whichever sprite we want invisible, such as the whole sprite. We no longer want this one to be visible, because if you remember, on start, this one's always going to be visible, and these 4 below are going to be invisible. All right, so let's now make this one invisible by doing a dot visible equals false. Okay, perfect. Right below it, though, we're going to have to make the one we want visible, which is the slice right. So let's add that there. Perfect. Let's do a dot visible equal that to true. Perfect. All right, now we have to pass in some gravity, because if you remember, the original gravity of those slices within it are set to 0. So we need to pass in those. So let's add each one here and do a dot gravity. And we're simply going to set that equal to 100. We could add a different one later, but that's kind of up to you. Let's go ahead, copy this whole thing here, paste it below. We know that everything's the same except this 2 here. You could have dragged and dropped it, but I just like to copy it. So there we go, perfect. So now we're adding the gravity to these, which is great. Awesome. So now the next thing we need is the actual speed calculation. So let's go ahead and create a new variable in here. We're going to call this fruit underscore speed. And what we're going to do is we're going to default set that to 1000, okay? I find 1000 works pretty well. You are always welcome to try different speeds. But what we're going to do now is pass in that speed. So we're going to take our half one, and we're going to do a dot velocity, and we're going to equal that to a vector 2, okay? And then with that vector 2, we're going to do a dot up, because we're going to shoot the piece up, and then we are also going to do a dot rotated, and within the rotation, we're going to set, again, our slice. So let's grab that slice again, drag and drop it within there, and do a dot global position. And then we just want to times it by the speed we have. So times the fruit speed. All right, perfect, and that's all you need. So now we just need to do that same thing for the other one. So let's copy the whole thing. I'm going to enter behind it, paste it in. So now we just need for the other slice. So we have to do it for the half 2. So let's do half 2. Awesome, but if you guessed it, we have to change which way it's going to go. So it's no longer going to go up. This one's going to go down, okay? So make sure to change that to down. Awesome. And then I think we should be looking good, all right? We could change also this in here, but I don't think it's really going to affect it. But overall, it should be set with that, okay? Awesome. So go ahead and save that real quick. Perfect. So now we can do the other ones with just copying and pasting this in and changing a few values. Okay, so let's go ahead and just copy this whole thing we have here. I'm simply going to paste it in for the middle one. Perfect. And we're looking for the same stuff. We're looking for that slash, and also if it doesn't already equal hit, which is great. So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and change the actual positioning. So we're no longer going to shoot it up and down. We're going to shoot it left and right. So let's go ahead and change this to left. And then we're also going to change this to right. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Then, of course, we need to change what exactly we're making visible. So we don't want to use the slice right anymore. We want to use the slice down. Okay, so you can either change it like this, or you can do the slice down. And then just simply copy it, or better yet, just copy it like that and just paste it in for each one. We know the half is always going to be half 1 and half 2. So I'm just simply going to paste these all in just like this. Nice and simple. Perfect. Awesome. And we should be set there. The only extra thing we could add to this, to both of them actually, is to start the timer. So if we wanted to, we could simply go ahead on each one of these and grab our little timer here. And we could do a dot start. And then also we could go ahead and we could reset our rotation speed. If you want it to keep spinning after it's sliced, you can, but I find it looks a little better if we equal it to 0. And then in the future, not necessary right now, but what we could do is we could simply go ahead and connect to our main node script by doing a $sign and a dot dot in between quotes and getting our dot score. Now this does not exist yet, but we could have it here ready to go once we create it. All right, so we'll do a plus equals 1. All right, so we could add all this now. This isn't necessarily necessary right now for testing, but might as well put it in so we don't forget later. Okay, awesome. Let's add that in there too. Perfect. All right, so now we need to do the horizontal movement ones. These ones are a little different. So let's go ahead and just copy one of these real quick. And we're going to be doing the right S1, so the right slash. So let's go ahead, paste this in right here. Perfect. So this again is for the function for the right slash. All right. So of course we need to change which ones we're making visible and adding gravity to. So we're going to go ahead and let's go ahead. We want to make the slice right. So we're going to be using the, let's see, sliced right slashed. So we could go ahead and just type that in here. Sliced right slashed. Perfect. Copy that. Let's just paste it into each one so we don't forget. Perfect. 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 Awesome. And there we go. Perfect. Great. All right, so now what we got to do is give it a little bit of a horizontal movement. And the best way I've found to do this is actually use the up and down. So let's use up here and then make sure it's capital O or it's not going to like it. And then down over here for our vector 2. And then we need to add a little bit of positioning movement to here. And the reason is because that horizontal movement is not a natural up and down. We have to add a little bit of some degrees to that. So how we can do that simply is adding a plus to our global position and doing a deg to rad. In between the parentheses, we're simply going to set -45. Okay, perfect. And that works pretty well overall, okay? And we're just going to add that same thing to the one below. We can leave everything the same, including the -45, okay? So just simply add that there, and we should be looking good. That has worked good for me in the past, and it should be working good for you as well, okay? Awesome. So let's save that real quick. Perfect. And we can simply go ahead now and just copy this whole thing here. Paste it below for the next one. This is going to be the left slash area. So let's go ahead and change this to sliced left slashed. All right, and simply go ahead, copy all of it and paste it in for each one. Perfect, nice. There we go, and there we go. So make sure that has left for each one. Awesome. Then what we're gonna do is we need to change the actual drag. So let's go ahead and instead of -45, we are gonna do just +45, okay? And that should work great, all right? Awesome, so we're gonna go ahead and do that there and that there. All right, so let's save that, looking good. And there we go, awesome. All right, great. And that should be everything. All right, now this isn't gonna work right now because we are still missing that score one right here. And of course, we don't have the cannons working yet to actually shoot the fruit out yet. All right, but we will do that in the next couple sections. So let's save everything we got though. Perfect, let's go back to 2D view. Let's go ahead and save what we got over here as well and jump back to Apple. So in the next section, we're gonna create the rest of the fruit, which are gonna have a couple different types of sprites. So awesome, looking good. All right, in this section, we're gonna go ahead and create all the other fruit types. We're gonna start off creating multiple copies of the fruit. Then we're gonna give each fruit its own type of sprite to make it different. Then we're gonna ensure all the sprites cut correctly. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and get started creating the other types of fruit. So we already have the apple, but we need 3 more. So let's go ahead, and what we're gonna do to make this really easy, we're simply gonna go to Scene, New Inherited Scene, and we're simply gonna use that apple scene because everything else should be the same except, of course, for the sprite. So let's go ahead, open that up. We're gonna change the name of this. Let's do banana first. Let's go ahead, enter that. Let's save it. Make sure we save it in the same location, the Fruit Duel game under Game Components. Save banana.tscn. Awesome. Now for banana, we just need to drag and drop the correct sprite. So let's go ahead, find the banana sprite. Open up the first one for the whole sprite. Drag and drop it in. Perfect. There's the banana. Awesome. Let's save that. Then let's go ahead. Let's do the rest for the pieces. So we have these other ones. So we can go ahead and highlight these. And simply go ahead, open up each one. Just drag and drop the banana for each one. And because we made it so large, such as the half, everything should fit. But we're just going to double check. Perfect. Let's go ahead and make that invisible. Make the slice down one visible. Open up each side. Let's go ahead, drag and drop the banana. Perfect. Perfect, that looks great. Awesome. Let's go ahead, invisible that one. Now for the next one. Open it on up, drag and drop the banana. Perfect. There we go. Nice. Last one. Let's go ahead, make that invisible. Open it up. Drag and drop the banana. There we go. And there we go. Nice. We got it all. All right, so that's everything for the banana. Let's save all that. Perfect. Make sure, though, that the first one is visible, which is the whole sprite. So save it again, perfect. Let's do the next one. So we can go ahead to Scene, New Inherited Scene. We're gonna go ahead, select Apple again, open it up, change the name. Let's do Grape for this one. Awesome. Let's go ahead, do the same thing. Let's use Grape. I'm gonna drag and drop it in, perfect. Let's do the next one. Drag and drop it for each one. There we go, there we go. Make sure you have it visible to make sure it's working. Perfect. Let's do the next one. For the slice down, drag and drop each sprite. Perfect. There we go. Make that visible. Looks like it's grape. Awesome. Let's do the next one. Open it up. Drag and drop the sprite. One more. There we go. Let's go ahead. Close that. Last one. Open it on up. Drag and drop the grape. And there we go, nice. There we go. Close that up. And we should be all set. So all of them should be the grape, which they are, perfect. Make sure you only have the whole sprite open. Let's save that. Save it in the same section. There we go. All right, one more regular fruit. Let's go ahead, go to Scene, New Inherited Scene, select Grape, or you could do any of them, but I like using the same one, which is Apple. All right, let's go ahead and do watermelon for this. All right, for watermelon, let's go ahead, open up the hole. Let's go ahead, drag and drop the watermelon sprite. Perfect. Open up the next couple, make the original invisible. Drag and drop it. There we go. And there we go. Nice. Let's go ahead, do the next one. Open it on up. Drag and drop it for each one. Nice. Invisible. Make this one visible. 2 more left. Let's go ahead, drag and drop it in. There we go. Nice. All right, next one. This will be the last one. And then we should be all set with all of our regular fruit. All right. We do have one more fruit to make. That'll be in the next section. That's going to be for the cherry bomb. It's going to be a little bit different, but mostly the same, only a couple different coating differences. Let's save this though. Let's go ahead, save it in the same section. Awesome. Just make sure that the original is visible and not any of the others. Perfect. Let's double check them all. There's the grape, banana, apple. Perfect. All right, looking good. All right, don't forget to save, and there you go. All right, in this section, we're gonna go ahead and create the cherry. So the cherry is gonna be the one negative fruit we have, where if we slash it as the player, we're gonna get negative points. So we're gonna start this off creating a new sprite for the cherry. Then we're gonna give the cherry a simple flashing red animation. Last but not least, we're gonna add a script for the cherry's functionality. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and get started creating the cherry. So what we're gonna do, instead of starting completely from scratch, I'm simply gonna go ahead, locate our apple scene that we have, right click it, duplicate it, change the name to cherry. Then we can simply go ahead, double click that scene and open it up. Now we're not gonna need a lot of things in here, so we can go ahead and remove quite a bit. Let's go ahead though and close all these up. All right, so let's go ahead and just simply select the bottom one here, hold down shift, and then select the slice right all the way up there. We should only have the main node and then also one node for the sprite. We can change the name though to cherry. And then we're gonna go ahead, save that. Perfect. All right, now what we're gonna do is change the sprite, of course. So let's go ahead, locate the cherry sprite, drag and drop it in, and there we go. Awesome. Now we gotta go ahead and add that animation. Simple enough, let's add it in the whole sprite. Right click, add child node, animation player, add that in there. Let's go ahead and add a new animation. I'm just gonna call it idle. And we're not actually gonna be editing the idle one. We're gonna edit the other one. So until we add something in here, I don't think it's gonna go into effect. So let's go ahead and just simply add something like the visibility. Let's go to inspector. Let's go ahead and just save something like I said, the visibility, like that. Perfect. Then we'll have the reset one. So let's go ahead and edit this one though. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make this about 1 second long. And all we're gonna do is simply change the color of this. So we're just gonna go ahead on the sprite 2D. We're gonna go to the modulate. We're gonna save the original color, just like that. But then once we get to half a second, so 0.5, then we're gonna go ahead and just simply make this red, okay? Awesome. And then we're gonna go ahead, save that there. Then at the end of the 1 second, we're gonna go ahead and simply make this back to what it was. Perfect. And then make sure it is on repeat right here. Make sure that's blue. If you hit play, then it will go ahead and start playing. All right. Now it's up to you. If you want to make this faster, you totally can, but I think it looks pretty good for what we're working with. So I'm going to go ahead, send it back there. Perfect. All right. The next thing we need in here is, of course, an area 2D. So let's right click on the main node, add an area 2D. And then all we need is one simple collision for this, because it doesn't matter what side we hit it on. I'm going to add a collision shape and simply give it a circle shape. All right, just like that. Make it slightly big, about that size. Awesome. And that's going to be all the nodes for it. So let's go ahead and save that real quick. Select the main node, detach the original script, because we're going to make a new script for the cherry. Add the script, make sure it's in the Fruit Duel game under game components, like we have everything else. Hit create, and there we go, looking good. All right, so this is going to be a really simple script. We're just going to want a couple things to happen. So the first thing we're going to do is add a variable. We're going to call this direction hit. Give it a type of string. And then we're going to go ahead, give it a variable for gravity. We're going to equal that simply to 300 starting off. .0, perfect. We can put those right next to each other. All right, then we're going to go ahead in our function underscore ready. We're going to go ahead and we're simply going to set our animation. So drag and drop this in here, do a dot play, and then just simply set the reset one. All right, awesome, perfect. Then below that function, we're going to go ahead, do function process, and we're simply going to set our rotation degrees plus equals 120 times delta. That's just going to give it a default rotation, which should look pretty good. All right, awesome, there we go. All right, underneath that, we're going to go ahead and we're simply going to create our function for our physics. So let's do a physics process, perfect. If not is underscore on floor, just like we've done in the past, we're simply going to go ahead and set our velocity dot y plus equals our gravity times delta. All right, perfect. And then don't forget, you have to have that move and slide or it's not going to actually move the object. All right, awesome. Now we have one more function to do, and that's going to simply be our area 2D. So let's go ahead, select our area 2D, go to the node, area entered, connect it to the Cherry script. Then what we're going to do is we're going to be looking for, of course, the slash. So let's do if area dot is underscore in underscore group, parentheses, double quotes, slash. If that is the case, then we're going to want to go ahead and we're going to find the parent. So this does not exist yet, but we will find it simply by doing a $, double quotes, dot dot slash, which goes up one directory, and then animation player. So animation player, okay? Awesome, perfect. Then what we're going to do is also decrease the score. If you remember in the last script, we did $, double quotes, dot dot slash, or actually you don't even need the slash actually because it's only up one. And then we'll do dot score, okay? Awesome. See, make sure it has score there. Perfect. Don't forget the minus equals. Now I like to do a -5. I think that's a little more better than a 1, but that's up to you. And then of course we need to get rid of the cherry. So we'll simply do a Q free. Perfect. Awesome. So remember, these are not existing right now, but they will be existing in the next couple sections. That'll be for the animation player and of course the -=5. Okay, awesome. Now this one here though, I think we actually might have created it. This was our dot play. And let's double check it real quick. I think it was in our original. If we open our main animation player, was it here? Oh, it looks like we already did make it. That's our boom. Okay, so we'll just simply put boom there and play. There we go. And that'll play that animation. Okay, awesome. All right, let's go ahead and save that real quick. Perfect. Go back to 2D view and we'll be set at the main scene. Perfect. So far looking good. All right, in this section, we're going to go ahead and create the cannon script. We're going to start off creating a new script for the cannon. Then we're going to ensure a random fruit is selected. We're also going to ensure a random position is selected when firing the fruit. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and get started creating the cannon script. So this script is going to be responsible for shooting the fruit out at a random amount, and of course the random positioning, random type and all that. So let's go ahead and select the main cannons node right here. Let's add a script, cannons, make sure we're locating it in the correct script right over here, fruit dual game, open, create, perfect. All right, so we're going to have a preload for each type of fruit. So let's simply create a variable. We're going to do apple for the first one. That's going to equal preload. And then if you type in apple, it should pop up. Just make sure you're adding the TSCN. Perfect. Then we can simply just copy this, paste it below. I'll paste it for each fruit. Should have 5 overall. change the name, which is going to be banana. And then, of course, change banana over here. It should pop up. Sometimes it adds this little extra part here. Just remove that and you should be good. Let's do the next one. This one's going to be grape. Go ahead, change this here to grape. And you should be good. Awesome. Let's do the next one, watermelon. Hopefully I'm spelling that right. Watermelon. There we go. Remove that over there. Perfect. Awesome. All right, now the cherry. Let's go ahead and add that. Cherry. Perfect. Change this right here to cherry. Perfect. Awesome. All right, and there's all our fruit. Nice. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to initiate basically everything when that timer goes off, okay? Which is going to be the timer here. I'm pretty sure. If not, we can go ahead and create a new one. That's going to be the timer for the game. So we are going to need a specific timer for basically kicking this off. So let's go ahead and add that real quick. Looks like we missed that originally. It's just going to be a simple timer. You can give it a name, but I'm just going to keep it as timer since it's already inside the cannon. So let's go ahead and connect that real quick. We're going to connect that to our cannon script right here. Perfect. And there we go. Awesome. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to make sure that the game is on. Now we're going to be setting this variable in the next section, the next script. So it's just going to go up one to the main. We're going to add that script originally right here. And all we're going to be doing is looking for, of course, that .game underscore is underscore on, because we don't want to be shooting fruit out until the game is on. So we want to make sure that's on. So if it equals false, then we're simply going to return, which will cancel out everything we're going to do after this. Okay? Awesome. All right, but if it is the case, we can make a fruit, then we're going to go ahead and start creating some variables. We're going to call this ran, which is going to be a random number. So we're going to do random I range. And in random I range, we're going to have 1 to 7 values. All right. I find that this works pretty well. And then we're also going to go ahead. We're going to have variable. We're going to call this bomb, or we could even call it cherry chance, honestly. Cherry chance. And we're going to equal that again to a random I range. And we're simply going to set that to a 1 to 10. So out of 1 of every 10 times, we're going to have a cherry bomb, which is great. And then we're going to have, of course, the type of fruit. We're going to need a variable for that, which is going to be called fruit underscore instance. All right, awesome. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to check. We're going to say if our cherry chance is less than or equal to 2, then what we're going to do is we're simply going to go ahead and set our fruit instance equal to the cherry dot instantiate, all right, which is going to then pick which one, of course. All right, but if that isn't the case, then we want to pick a regular fruit. So we're going to go ahead, have an else here. And inside our else, we're going to have a couple things. We're going to have another random value, which is going to be called variable fruit. Because we have multiple fruit, we don't just want to be making the same one each time. We're going to do random I range. And we're going to have 1 to 4 because we have 4 fruit. So it's going to choose one of those fruit. And then we're just going to have a couple if else's. Say if fruit equals 1, then we can simply set that fruit instance to, of course, the apple. So let's go ahead and set that to apple. Awesome. Then, of course, we can do an elif. We can do elif fruit equals 2 now. And this time we can change it up. We can say if this equals that, then we'll say that it is going to become the banana. All right, perfect. Let's copy the elif. Paste it right below, make sure it's on the same line. All right, so the next one, we're gonna go ahead and do grape. Let's add the grape there. All right, one more. Let's go ahead and now do the watermelon. Don't forget to change the number though. If we don't change the number, it's never gonna actually change the fruit. All right, there we go. And now let's do the watermelon right here. And there we go, nice, awesome. All right, so that's gonna go ahead and depict what exactly we're creating. Then next up, outside of this if else, we're going to go ahead and start adding it into the real world. So let's go ahead and do add sibling. It's important we do add sibling because it needs to be in the right directory. And then we're going to do fruit instance. So we're creating that new fruit. I'm going to add a couple enters here so we can see it better. There we go. So under add sibling, we're going to go ahead and do variable. and we're just going to call this fruit underscore speed. And we're simply going to equal that to 600. You can play around with the actual firing speed, but I think this works pretty good. I'm going to say if our random, which is RAN, equals 1, then we're going to go ahead and shoot it out of the 1 position. All right. So let's go ahead and create that. Once we create the first one, we can just simply copy and paste it for the others. So we'll do our fruit instance dot global position. And we're going to go ahead, equal this. Because we're at the 1, we're going to shoot it out of cannon 1. So let's take cannon 1, put it right there. Perfect. We're going to do our dot global position of that. Okay, awesome. So that's going to give our initial position based on which cannon. Okay, now we need to give it some actual force so it really shoots out of there. So again, we're going to do fruit instance. And this time we're going to set its velocity, set velocity. There we go. We're going to equal that to a vector 2, similar to how we did it in the fruit scripts. We're going to do a dot up, all right? And then we're going to do a dot rotated, and then again, we're going to do fruit instance. And we're simply going to set our dot global position. Make sure you spell this right, or it's going to give you errors later on. And then we're simply going to go ahead, and I think we can just do a plus for this because we're doing this one over here, which is on the bottom part. We'll have to do some times ones for the diagonal ones. But let's go ahead and do plus for this. So let's do plus. Again, we're doing that same thing. We're going to do a drag to rad. Drag to rad, wherever that is. Oh, sorry. Whoop, drag to rad. Spelling wrong. And then we're going to do 20, okay? Awesome. And then, of course, we're going to times it by the speed that we set earlier. So we're going to go ahead, times the whole thing by the fruit speed, okay? Awesome. And there we go. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Nice, nice. So now we can go ahead and we're going to simply copy this whole thing. We're going to paste it below. I'm only going to change this if to an elif, just so it only does it once and doesn't check the others, just to help processing speeds. So we're going to change this one to 2. So of course this is going to be the second one now. And of course we're not going to be using cannon 1 anymore. We're using cannon 2 now. Okay, awesome. Now cannon 2, we're going to keep pretty much everything the same, except we're not going to do our drag rad. We're just going to simply times the whole thing. And that's because we want them to be a little bit different than the others. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove that real quick. Perfect. And keep it just like that. All right, because we want some different styles of movement when we have all these fruit. Some we want to go a little more, some we want to fly in different directions, all that, okay? So let's go ahead and keep this as it is. Awesome. Let's go ahead and copy this whole thing, paste it right below. Awesome. So this is going to be for the third one. So let's go ahead, change it out to 3, change the cannon to 3, and I think we can leave primarily everything else the same. We're still going up, and we're still timesing it by the speed. So I think we can leave everything the same. All right, awesome. So let's copy the whole thing again, paste it below, change our value now to 4. Of course, change the cannon number to 4. Okay, there we go, perfect. Now for our cannon 4, we're simply going to, again, keep everything the same, times it by speed, perfect. So keep everything the same. Now for 5 though, it's gonna be matching up with the original one with the if. So we're gonna need that plus drag 20. So let's go ahead, copy this whole thing, paste it below, make sure it's on the right line, change the random number to 5, cannon 5, and then we're going to re-add the plus drag to rad 20. Okay, awesome. And because we're not on the same section as it, we're on the other side, so we're no longer on the left, this is going to be all the way on the right, we're going to change it a little bit and just do a negative 20 now, okay, to give it a little bit of a curve, okay? Awesome. Now, of course, we need the diagonal ones, okay, which are 6 and 7. 6 is on the right, 7's on the left. So let's copy this whole thing, paste it below. Let's go ahead and do 6 first, which is on the right side. And what we're going to do now is we're simply going to, instead of doing a negative 20, I found that the best one that works is a negative 80, okay? So everything else the same, but negative 80. And if you guessed it, for 7, all we're really going to do is simply make that a positive 80. So let's go ahead. But don't forget, almost forgot, change the cannon, all right? Or else it's just going to keep shooting it out of the same one. We don't want that. We want it to be different. So change that to 7, and then also change this to 7 also. Okay, awesome. And then we're getting rid of the negative here because we want it to now go from left to right. Okay, awesome. But I think that's it, and we should be looking good. All right, let's save what we got here. Go ahead, save that back to 2D view. And there we go, we're looking good. All right, in this section, we're going to create the final script for the game. This is going to be the main script. We're going to start off creating the new script and attaching it to the main node. Then we're going to ensure the line 2D follows the mouse and that the game's timer updates correctly. We're also going to connect all the UI buttons to this script that start the game and end it. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and get started creating this final script. But before we do, I noticed we missed one thing, and that's inside the original timer for the cannons. I noticed that we forgot to set auto start on, okay? And also, just to note, if you want to adjust the wait time for a fruit to fire out of these things, you'll have to adjust the time right here. But you have to make sure the auto starts on or it will never start, okay? Awesome, so make sure you got that there. I'm gonna close the cannons up. Let's go ahead, select the main node here, add script. Make sure we're adding this in the correct location, which is the fruit duel game. Open, create, and there we go. Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and add a couple things in here. First thing we're going to add is an @onReady. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. We're going to set a variable called mouse underscore trail underscore line. Okay, and this is going to be equal to, of course, a line 2D, and of course our current line 2D that we have, which is right here. You can simply drag and drop it in, and there you go. Awesome. Then we're going to have a couple other variables here. We're going to have a variable called max underscore trail underscore points, and we're going to equal that to 5. We can always adjust it later. We're going to have another variable. This is going to be called point underscore distance underscore threshold. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and equal that to 2.0. Okay, awesome. Next up, we're going to create another variable. We're going to call this mouse underscore still underscore timer. Okay, and we're going to equal that to 0.0. Then we're also going to go ahead, create another variable. We're going to call this, of course, mouse underscore still underscore timeout. Okay, and these are all variables we need to make that slicing effect look somewhat realistic. Okay, we can always adjust these later on. We're also going to create another variable. We're going to call this last underscore mouse underscore position. Okay, and we're going to equal this to a simple vector2, and we're going to equal it to vector2 dot inf. Okay, awesome. All right, and there we go. Now we need a couple more variables right below. We're going to go ahead and set our variable game underscore is underscore on, which you've seen before. And we're going to always set that to false at the beginning of the game. We're also going to go ahead and we're going to set our score as well, which at the beginning of the game we always want to set to 0. Okay, awesome. Let's go ahead and create our first function. This is going to be our ready function right below. And all we're going to do is we're going to set our mouse trail line right here to dot clear underscore points, and we are going to create this. Okay, but for now we're just going to keep it as is. It's going to be an error for now. Clear points, and then we're going to go ahead and get our label time dot, and we're going to do text, and we're going to simply set our text to what we have it currently, which is double quotes capital T time colon 20. Okay, awesome. All right, keep that and looking good. All right, let's continue on. So let's go ahead and do the next function. This next function is going to be the bulk of our code. This is going to be our process function. And of course, we're going to be updating quite a few things in here, specifically for the 2D line. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a variable for our current underscore, 2 R's current underscore mouse underscore POS for position. And we're simply going to equal that to our get underscore. Let's do our global mouse position. All right, awesome. All right, because we're going to need this for a couple things. So let's go ahead and go down so we can see a little better. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're simply going to have an if statement and say if game is on equals true. Then we want to update the time. So we're going to go ahead, get our label time, drag and drop here, do our dot text. And then we're simply going to go ahead, equal it to double quotes, capital T time, colon space. And then we have to, of course, add in our time that we have. So we're going to do plus str parentheses round I, because we can't do a float, or if we do a float, it'll look really bad. So we'll keep round I. And then we're going to do timer game length, drag and drop that into there. Perfect. Do dot time left. Okay, awesome. All right, so that'll connect that. Perfect. So that's going to be it for the timer. Now we're also going to need, of course, a couple things for the slashing effect. So we're going to do if capital I input. And we're going to say input.is mouse button pressed. And we are going to be looking for mouse. We're going to do mouse button left. You could do right if you want to. That's up to you. And game is on equals true, because we don't want to be able to slash when the game's off. Okay, awesome. So make sure you have that there. Then we're going to do a couple things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set our area 2D, which is right over here. We need the actual collision of it though. We need to set the disabled equal to false. So the dot disabled should now equal false, okay? Because on start it should equal true, and we can go ahead and set that right here since we're right over here. Just simply select it and turn that on, because by default it should always be on, okay? Awesome. So save that little change. Perfect. Then we're also going to go ahead and we're going to get the actual area 2D slash. We need it to follow around the mouse, so we're going to do a dot global position. And we're simply going to equal that to our get underscore global mouse position. Okay, perfect. So that's going to make it follow it around. All right, awesome. Then we're going to have to do a little bit of some calculations for the actual line, okay? So we need to start off with an if, and we're going to say if last mouse position does not equal our vector2 dot inf and current mouse position dot distance 2, and we're going to be looking for that last mouse position. And then what we're going to say is if it is greater than 0.1, okay? And if that's the case, then we're going to set our mouse still timer equal to 0.0, okay? And we're also going to have an else if that's not the case. And if it's not the case, then we're going to set our mouse still timer plus equals delta. All right, perfect. That's going to update our timer, which is great. Then we're going to have to do a couple other things. This is also going to be inside the same input if. We're going to go ahead, do if mouse trail line dot get underscore point, it pops up, point underscore count, and we're going to say if that's equal to 0 or backslash, and then within it we're going to go ahead and we're going to say mouse trail line, and we're going to do mouse trail line dot get underscore point position, and we're going to go ahead, pass in mouse trail line again. Here we go. Mouse trail line dot get underscore point underscore count. Okay, awesome. and then we're going to minus that whole thing by 1, and then we're simply going to do a dot distance to parentheses current mouse position, and I think we should be good there. We just have to go ahead and add a less than point mouse threshold, and then go ahead and end that there. Perfect. And then we're going to go ahead, add another over here. And now inside of our current if, we're going to go ahead, make sure we just backslash this. We should be able to do a point there. If not, we'll fix it in a bit. We're just going to go ahead and now set our mouse tail line dot add point. If it lets us do it, add point, current mouse position. Okay, awesome. And there we go. All right, looks good, looks good. All right, now we can go ahead. I'm going to backspace this once though. And I'm going to space this up one more time there. Perfect. Okay, now that we have that there, we're going to have a quick little while still with everything. We're going to have a while. We're going to do a mouse trail line. While mouse trail line dot get underscore point count. And inside of it, we're going to go ahead, we're going to say greater than max trail line, or max trail points, that's fine. And then we're going to go ahead and simply do our mouse trail line. And then we're going to do a dot remove underscore point parentheses 0. Okay, awesome. All right, almost done. Then we're going to go ahead after this while, still all inside the input. We're going to do an if. We're going to say if mouse still timer greater than equal to mouse timeout, still timeout, perfect. And then we're simply going to set our mouse trail line. There we go. Trail line dot clear points parentheses, perfect. And then we're simply going to go ahead, do our mouse still timer. We're going to reset that back to 0.0. And then we're also going to set our last mouse position equal to vector2 dot inf. All right, awesome. And then outside of this whole thing, on the if statement with the input, we're going to do a simple else. And we're simply going to set our mouse tail line dot clear points, just like that, perfect. And then we're also going to set our mouse still timer equal to 0.0. And then we're going to go ahead, set our last mouse position back, of course, to 0.0. Or no, last mouse position, sorry, that's going to be vector2 inf. There we go, awesome. And then, of course, we need to set our disabled area 2D collision shape back to true. So we're going to take that, what we had up there, simply paste it, change this to true. Okay, awesome. All right, and then outside of this whole thing, to actually get the update from it, we're going to set our last mouse position equal to current mouse position. Perfect. And that should be it there. We might come in here and edit a couple things if we missed anything. We will make sure to debug if we still have issues by the end of it, but no worries. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up with the UIs. So we're going to connect these all to the script. Pretty simple ones, so we can just simply go ahead, remove these extra spaces here. And then what we're going to do is we're simply going to go ahead, select onto the main UI screen. So if we close this up here, If I slide this over, you can see it a little better. If we go to our start screen, and then we go to the button play, we can simply select the button here and then find the actual button node of it. And this is going to be, that's not button, that's button play. Select that there, go to pressed, and then we want to make sure we are connecting it to the main script. Should pop up right here, perfect. And all we're going to do is we're simply going to go ahead. We are going to set our start screen. So dot visible equals false. And then we're also going to go ahead, set our game is on equal to true. Perfect. And then we're going to go, of course, and start the timer. Okay. So locate the game timer, timer game length, drag and drop that right there. Do a dot start. And this one should not be on auto start. So if we select the timer, go to inspector, make sure you're on the timer though. Yep, it shouldn't have auto start on, which is perfect. Awesome. All right, so that's going to be the play game button. So now we of course need the quit button. So let's go ahead in the start screen. Since we're already there, let's go ahead, button quit, pressed, make sure it's connecting to main. There we go. And all we're going to do in here, real simple, we're just going to simply do a get tree dot reload current scene. And we're just going to make all the quit buttons connect to that, okay? So we can go ahead, close the start screen. We can open up the game over screen and simply select the button quit. We can go ahead, select pressed here, and we're just going to connect it to the main script. It'll automatically connect to this one, which is great. Then we just need to do the in-game UI one. So open up in-game UI, select button quit, select pressed, make sure it's connecting to main, and there we go. Awesome. All right, now we just need the actual game over timer. So let's go ahead, back to our main node, select the timer game length, go to timeout of it, make sure you're on the right one, select main, perfect. And what we're going to do is simply set the game is on equal to false again. So game is on, set that back to false, perfect. Then we're also going to go ahead, we're going to make the win-lose screen or the game over screen, whatever you called it, equal to true. So dot visible equals true. And then we also have to update the score in it. So if you remember, inside of here we had a label for this. This is going to be the game over, or it could be points, doesn't really matter. So I'm going to take this over here, put it right here. I'm going to do a dot text, and I'm simply going to equal that to double quotes, points, colon, space, and then simply do a plus str, and then we're going to go ahead and put score there. Perfect. Awesome. So know that was a lot of coding. Remember, you can always check the source code, save what you got here. Let's go back to 2D view, and there we go, looking good. All right, in this section, we are going to do some bug fixes. We are going to test the game and ensure it's working as expected. Then we're going to ensure the player can fully play the game. Then we're going to go ahead and fix any of the located bugs. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, let's go ahead and test the game out and ensure there's no bugs. Let's go ahead and play current scene. Now it looks like on start we're having a bit of an error here. You might have already caught this, but it looks like I labeled the line 2D as a light 2D by accident. So go ahead and change that to line 2D, all right? That'll fix that little error there. Let's save that. Perfect. Let's go back to 2D view. Stop the game. Play current scene. Hit play. Let it load. Looks like we have another issue. It says invalid operands vector 2 float in operation plus. So it looks like we did an error with our global positioning for all of these. These should be global rotation. And I bet we also did this in the other scripts as well. So we're inside the canon.gd. So everything inside of our rotated shouldn't be a global position. It should be a global rotation. All right. So global underscore rotation. All right. Just like that. So go ahead, let's copy that and paste that in for each one down here. Only the ones inside of the rotated parentheses should be this. So go ahead, paste those all in. Awesome. That should fix that error. But like I said, I think we also messed this up inside of our fruits script. So let's go ahead inside our fruits script. And I think, yep, it should be somewhere like right here. See how we did the same thing in all these rotated parentheses in our vector2s? We accidentally put global position. We should have put global rotation. So let's change all those. Make sure you add these here or it's going to give us that same error. All right. Remember, you can always check the source code. It probably already has the fix on this. So let's go ahead, add this all here. We have that one done, that one done. That one's good. This one needs to change. And I think we're okay. All right, I think everything else looks good. All right, oh, I see one thing actually. We haven't caught this yet, but right here, as you can see, we're turning on the slice right. But this one's the middle one, so we should have the slice down actually active. Because if we go here, we should see slice down, not slice right. The slice right one should be this one. So let's go ahead and change that real quick. That's going to be slice down. Okay, perfect. All right, that's going to be hard to catch. It looks like we got there. So remember, make sure you have global rotation for all these. Let's go ahead. Let's go back to main, 2D view. Let's go ahead. Oops, make sure I'm on the right game. Let's save that, close the current game, reopen it up, let that load, hit play. Looks like our swiping is working and looks like we're able to cut the fruit. Let's make sure that we can also hit a cherry bomb once one shows up. There's the bomb. Oh, looks like it works. Awesome. And looks like everything else looks like it's working pretty good too. Perfect. Nice. We can cut all these fruit. All right, looks like our points, though, are not updating, unless I automatically got 0 points. I don't recall. Let's run it one more time. Let's just not hit any of the cherries. Looks like that's working good. These little lines here are just visible because of the debugger. I can show you how to turn that off. Let's just make sure that the points are actually updating. I'm not going to hit any of the cherries. All right, 2 more seconds. And yep, looks like the points are updating. Perfect. And the quit button resets the game. Nice. All right, looks good. Now to turn off the debugger, if yours was on, you simply can turn this off and on so you can see the debuggers of the collision shapes. All right, I'll keep it off for now. All right, overall, everything seems to be working well. If you find any bugs, please let me know and I will add it to this section. So far, so good.